Welcome to our Yurtiful Life podcast. In today's episode, we will be answering the question, which animal is best for a beginner?
Hey there, Yurties!
Thanks for joining us today. For anyone new here, I'm Keegan.
And I'm Sarah. We've been living a minimal off-grid lifestyle for over 10 years now.
We have a large family and lots of experiences to share.
So let's get to it. Welcome to
Our Yurtiful Life.
Hey there! So today we're talking about best beginner animals and choosing the best animal for you as you start up your homestead. And to start this all out, I wanted to ask Keegan what his favorite animal on the homestead, or if he had to choose just one to start with, put it that way, not favorite animal, but choosing one to start with, what would you start with?
So for me, this is a pretty easy option. I would say chickens. Chickens are very easy to raise compared to other types of animals. They don't require much space to still thrive and be okay. So the fencing is light duty, which means less cost to put up, less time. And they also provide a good ongoing source of food through their eggs or also meat when you need to cull them. So I'd say all around chickens are definitely a good beginner one.
And chickens were one of our beginner animals. And the reason being was really they aligned with our purpose and our goal for our homestead, which is to provide a source of food, is a major goal we have. And so that being said, the first question I'd pose to you is, what animal or animals are you interested in? Now, I could very easily say that the best beginner animal is chickens or rabbits. But if you really have no interest in chickens or rabbits or egg laying or rabbit, whatever purpose you have for them, then it would be crazy for me to say that those are the best beginner animals. You really have to start with what do you want to have and why you want to have that animal.
So this kind of ties back into what we talked about in earlier episodes about goals. You need to have firmly established goals before you start investing or bringing animals or trying to homestead. You need to know why you're doing what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish. And so animals are going to be a big part of that. If you're trying to raise horses because you love horses and you want to be able to ride a horse or go to different shows, then it makes no sense to start with chickens. You're not trying to accomplish a homestead in that case. You want a ranch. Okay, so you would aim for horses. But if you're aiming for generally wanting to produce food and try to figure out what animals fit well, then in that case, maybe chickens would be a good place to start. They're a pretty easy producer. So it really depends on, there's no ideal or golden animal, if you will. It depends on your goals and what you're trying to accomplish.
So with that being said, we're going to cover a range of animals, kind of ranking from easier keepers to a little bit harder and to the harder keepers that we have experienced and things of that nature. And then we're just going to talk through different animals, but the biggest mindset and two things that you really need to keep in mind through all of this when you are considering what is the best beginner animal is that purpose and breed matters. The purpose of the animal and then the breed you choose truly matters. So, do you have any thoughts on that?
This is more Sarah's department, but yes, I would definitely agree. I think now, in the day and the age we live in, breeds are so easily available, different breeds. You really have to be choosy and know your breed. So know the animal and then learn your breeds because each one will offer a different variety. Where in the past, maybe you only got what was local and you got what you got, or it was more of a mix type idea, so that didn't matter. But now we're in a place where we can really choose. So, yes, this is good advice to listen to.
And then always bear in mind that you want to have in the back of your head space for expansion. If you only have a small homestead with only an acre or two, you really are going to want to be very picky and not overpopulate your entire property at one time. So it is best practice to start small, to start with something manageable, especially if you have never done it before, and then slowly work your way up into the bigger animals, unless, again, that is not your purpose and your goal. So keep in the back of your mind to always have room for expansion. You do not have to start huge at first. So start small is generally the best and most recommended way to go. Now, getting into our first category of easy keepers or easier keepers. I would argue that no animal is truly easy. All animals have unique needs and care requirements. If you are familiar with even having a pet cats or dogs or fish, they all have specific needs and requirements, and each thing takes care, time, and investment, money, focused attention on the specific needs of that animal or animals. But on the homestead, we have listed 4 of the easier keepers, and we'll start with rabbits. Rabbits are a fairly easy to keep type of animal. Now, there are various different purposes and different breeds out there. So the rabbits are generally used for meat, wool, or for pets.
Now, we personally don't use rabbits for meat. We do have rabbits on our homestead. We don't eat meat from rabbits because we don't believe it aligns with what we see in Scripture, Leviticus chapter 11. But we do raise them for their wool, but also I like them for being able to harvest their manure. The manure is in a state that's very easy and gentle. You can apply it directly on gardens if you choose to. It doesn't require a cool down period like a lot of other manure sources from other animals. So it's very easy, and they produce plenty of it. If you raise them in a cage setup, you can kind of make it even easier to catch that manure and then transfer it to where you want to apply it. So for that, I would say to me that's the biggest plus of rabbits is the manure is very easy to harvest and easy to apply.
Currently, we have Jersey Woolies, which are a miniature breed. And in this season of life, the Jersey Woolies are much more manageable for our family because they're smaller, they take less time for grooming and harvesting of their fur. So that is what we currently have, our Jersey Woolly rabbits, which are more of a smaller wool producer and a pet breed.
So the next easier keeper would be chickens.
And we touched on this before.
Yep. So chickens are obviously good for their eggs, for their meat. The big thing I would say you have to watch out for is everything else like eggs too. So you'll very quickly maybe start to have issues if you're not collecting your eggs often enough. Really, the biggest preventative measure to have any egg issues seems to be collection. Routine, times a day, at least twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening, checking for eggs and collecting them, which doesn't give the chickens an opportunity to decide to eat eggs or get curious. It doesn't allow other things opportunities to take them before you get to them. So that is a great thing, but also comes with an extra burden of making sure nothing else is taking the eggs.
And so, talking about chickens briefly, there are a vast variety of breeds out there, and most people will have their favorites for different reasons. I grew up with a barnyard variety. Through our homesteading journey, we started with a barnyard mix of different breeds, Americana and Barred Rock and Rhode Island Red and Jersey Giant and some others in there. And we had those, but they were what you'd consider your typical chicken behavior. And one of our children has vision issues, and he was terrified of the chickens because of their sporadic flightiness, their fluttering in your face when you go to check eggs, and all of that. So, very early on, we were like, chickens are out until we discovered the breed Cochins. Now, we use the Cochins, and they are aptly termed a gentle giant. They are very calm compared to other breeds. They have big, fluffy, feathered feet, and we have standard Cochins, which are a very large size bird overall. Now, that means they are slower to come to maturity and slower producers, so they're maybe not as active of producing as other breeds, but it works for us because by the time they have lived their life as a producer and they're stopped laying, we are able to harvest a good sized carcass and have some soup at the end.
They're also good mothers. They'll very
Yes.
easily and quickly try to become broody, so we have no problems being selective and saying, "Oh, we'll leave the eggs under this one and let her brood while the rest we keep collecting," and then we have hatchlings pretty prolifically.
We have raised cochins exclusively for the past 7 years, and every year we've had very good success rate with hatching out
Yep.
chicks.
So they're
So
great breeders, great meat carcass after a few years of growth, and um, easy to raise, gentle, good layers.
So, next we'll talk about ducks. There are a lot of different types of ducks. And again, what is your purpose? What will kind of influence the breed you want? Are you raising ducks for meat? Are you raising them for eggs, just for the looks, for showing? Um, anyway, there's a lot that goes into choosing. Now, ducks are water lovers
Right?
and
They're a waterfowl. They are not a chicken.
they will make a mess of the water and a mess of their pens. They are not clean as chickens. They do need space, which chickens do as well, but they need space where they can get dry, away from the wet. So that is definitely something to keep into consideration. Now, we personally raise Muscovy ducks and only Muscovy ducks, and there's a reason for that. We wanted ducks for tick control and for meat. And when we were looking at animals for tick control, guineas is a common one that is recommended. And for us personally, we did not want to go that route. And we had researched and heard a lot about Muscovies being great for tick control. We have had Muscovies for 9 years now, and we have seen over and over how they can decimate a tick population in an area.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we've moved a lot, as you guys know from previous episodes. And each time we moved, usually it was on some piece of land that someone hadn't, at least a part of that land, someone hadn't been on there, or it was a very virgin land, if you will. So there was a lot of tick populations that would start coming out of the woodworks that you're waking up because you're now in that area. And so we would have issues. We'd bring our Muscovies on or bring them over, and within a few weeks, no more issues.
So we have always seen, and within a full season cycle, the tick population has decreased so drastically that it's very noticeable on our property. So the Muscovies are amazing for keeping the ticks down in
Mhm.
our experience. Also, we love their meat. It is very rich,
Dark
dark
meat.
meat. It's very much like roast beef. We just totally love the Muscovies. They're quieter than other breeds of ducks. They're not constantly quacking.
Yep.
And we just love their goofy appearance too. I know some people can't stand it, but I don't think
That
they're
would be, I'd say, the
hideous.
downside possibly is their looks. They look very different from other breeds that Americans are
I
used
think they're
to.
beautiful.
But we have kind of fallen in love with it. It's their own unique thing. The other, I was going to mention also that they're not as water. They love water, but they're not. They don't require water the same way a mallard type family duck does to thrive. They seem to be happy if you just give them big containers of water. They're happy with that. They can obviously drink, but they also bathe in it, and that it's part of their society, their social
So, a big part
cues.
of water as well is a lot of other breeds need the water to be able to do their breeding, and Muscovies don't. So, that's another thing to consider. But yeah, other ducks, there are lots of other breeds depending on what you're looking for, and the quality of meat will be different. The other breeds will lay prolific eggs. They may not be as good mothers. Muscovies are amazing at hatching out very, very large clutches. We're talking 18 to 22. I think the largest clutch we had hatch out one time was 24. And so they're very prolific breeders and do a great job. And they're very good at free ranging as well in our experience. So, that being said, why we don't have more than one type of duck and try to diversify is because if you breed a Muscovy with a mallard type duck, you will get what's called mule ducks. And those mule ducks are generally not able to breed or reproduce. And so all of the offspring would have to be consumed for meat. And for us, that's not exactly our goal and purpose. So we don't really see the need or have a desire to add in another breed of ducks
Right.
at this
We
time.
want to be selective. We do breed them for meat, so we cull them each fall down to a sizable amount we want to keep for the winter. But we want to be selective and be able to choose our breeding populations and what we want to keep continuing. So if we had a bunch of meal ducks running around that we have to, no matter what, we're really just cutting ourselves short on options down the road for their genetics and development.
All right. The last easy keeper we're going to discuss right now is pigeons and doves. Now, these are a very easy to keep bird. They really don't take a lot of care. They take very minimal food. However, they also don't produce a lot of meat if you're raising them for meat. They can also be great pets. They can be great beginner starter. They're beautiful. Again, they're not great for meat, but it is a nice delicacy and a nice switch up if you have them as a side.
Yep, king pigeons were our first bird that we raised before chickens, and so we got our hands dirty, or I got my hands dirty with that for me raising animals for the first time. And yes, they were very easy. They take minimal feed, but they're also a small bird. They take minimal because they are minimal. So and then the butchering process, looking back, I'd say it's actually for me as a man with larger hands, it's more difficult to butcher them because it's harder. There's not as much to grab, you guys be more finicky. The carcass is harder to pluck. So, and then at the end of the day, you put the labor in, and then you don't get much meat out of it. So, I think if you're trying to raise them as a product to sell to restaurants or as a side hustle to make money from them, not just for their direct consumption, maybe that would work out really well. But if you're just raising them mainly as a meat source for yourself, unless you're raising quite a lot of them, you might be disappointed.
All right, so let's go into like our next tier, like a moderate level difficulty tier here. And we'll start with giving a quick honorable mention to guineas. These could be either, I guess, an easier keeper or a moderate level, depending on your perspective of it. And for us, we have had guineas. We had heard some new things and we were like, we will give guineas another try. And
Mm,
the noise was incessant.
yeah, they
And
never stop.
they also, and that was like, okay, we could maybe get used to that. In our case, our guineas love the road and would always gravitate towards the middle of the road. And while we have a very slow road in the for general, we don't have a ton of traffic on our road. It still was stressful when you have vehicles going and blaring their horns every day because the guineas are in the middle of the road and the guineas are going crazy and then the dogs are going crazy.
Mhm.
And at the time, I was pregnant. I was having to run out multiple times a day to get the guineas out of the middle of the road. They would not stay out of the road. It wasn't like they had acres of forest and pasture to go to, and they just had to head straight to the road every single day. And so it was just too much. So they went to another farm where they ended up being very happy. But so for us, guineas were not something that made the cut. We did give them a second try,
They didn't fit our goals.
but yes, do deserve a mention that they are a fairly moderate care creature. While they just take, some can be really good at foraging, some do a good job of tick population control. That was just not our experience with them. So that being said, we'll move on to things that we are very passionate about and do have good experience with, and that would be goats and sheep. And again, here breed matters so much. What is your purpose? We'll start with goats.
So when we first we first saw goats being raised, I was against it. We were both against it. Said nope, never goats for us because we saw everyone else's horrible antics with goats
Now, I
and
grew up
issues.
with goats. I grew up with sheep and goats, and I have had goats since I was probably like 11 or 12. And so, for many years, my family had goats. And really, you have to know what your purpose is. Is it for milk? Is it for meat? Is it for a combination of the two? But if you are raising milk goats for dairy, you're going to have different breeds and different temperaments than your meat goats, like your boars. Your milk goats, you tend to think of your Nubians, Alpines, Nigerian dwarfs, Saanens, etc. So for us, we were first against goats. And then I did a lot of research and I really felt like we should try goats, give it a chance. And I really settled on the breed of the Saanen goat. And that was because of their temperament. The Saanens are very calm, very quiet compared to other goats. They don't tend to be fence jumpers or push boundaries very much. They tend to be very calm and collected.
And I personally did and have enjoyed Saanens because they are a larger breed, a little bit easier to handle, in my opinion. Easier to move them around where they need to go, but there's more laid back. I think because of their size, they don't really care as much about trying to constantly be energetic and push around everywhere. They're still a goat, but if you give them an opening, they're going to take it. But they don't try fencing nearly as much. And also, particularly with Saanens, our main purpose was to milk them for their dairy, and because they're taller, they're easier to milk. When they stand on the stanchion, it's easier to have access.
Now, Nubians have the cute floppy ears and they tend to be noisier. And Alpine goats, I do like the Alpines as well, but they also had some, they have a strong will and a very free spirit in our experience. So they also were a little bit harder to work with. For Nigerian dwarfs, we were originally our introduction to them, we were not interested in the breed at all, and we didn't like the attitude or behavior of the first Nigerian dwarf that we were introduced into. And we are joined in the studio by a lovely little miss. And
You have anything to say, little miss?
she just burped into the phone.
All right.
All right. So now you understand why I keep losing my train of thought.
This.
Nigerian dwarfs. So we didn't like them at first. Over the years, we were reintroduced to them in various settings, and we could see the pros of having Nigerian dwarfs. And then last year, we were looking for a buck for our son and does, and we could only find Nigerian dwarfs in our area. And so we got a Nigerian dwarf buck, actually two bucks, and we immediately liked the Nigerian dwarf bucks because they are much smaller and more manageable than Saanen bucks. Their temperaments are good. We haven't had any issues with them being too pushy or any of that, and part of that could be because we got younger bucks that we were able to train from the beginning. I'm not sure. But overall, having Nigerian dwarf bucks has been a good experience for us. And they bred the Saanen with no issues. And then we slowly have been increasing and having a few Nigerian dwarf females. Now, our idea was that from our research, Nigerian dwarfs are a more Africanized breed, so they tend to go into heat year round, whereas the Saanens would go into heat once a year because they were an alpine based breed. Now, in our practicality, we have not had that happen. We were really hoping that would happen so we could have year round milk from our goats, but we have not seen that to be the case. So we are constantly learning and readjusting as we go. But really, what it comes down to, we're discussing the breeds because breed matters. What breeds you choose will depend on what your goals are. And so, yeah, you really just need to know what is your purpose, what is your design, what is available to you, and then what works. But so far, our experience with the Nigerian dwarfs is that they are a fairly good breed to have as well. But I still think Saanens, overall, their temperament is a little bit quieter and calmer. And so we still really like the two, and we're going to continue experimenting and see what we come out with.
Mhm. So that moves us on to sheep. So hair sheep or wool sheep?
Again, this is where's your purpose? Are you looking for wool? Are you looking for milk? Are you looking for meat? If you are looking for meat only, then hair sheep are definitely your go to. And probably one of my best recommendations would be the Katahdin breed. Now, there are lots of different breeds, there are lots of different reasons to have sheep. If you are looking purely for wool, then it depends on the type of wool, the quality, the quantity, and all of those things. Size of the sheep. And that all matters when you're choosing a wool sheep. This is again where breed makes a huge difference. And if you're looking just for milk from your sheep, you're going to want more of the Friesians. If you want a tri-purpose breed, which is what we have preferred, you're going to want a more primitive breed, something like the Icelandic, the Finn. And so for us, we have a mixed flock, and our main purpose with the sheep is the wool, because I do love wool working. We also did want to have milk and meat thrown in as to work with it as well. And we also are looking for parasite resistance and smart brains and all of that, being good foragers and things of that nature. So we have several Icelandic ewes. Icelandic sheep have always been my favorite. We have a couple Soye added in the herd, and they're a very neat breed, a very primitive. They're
Very different.
very different, much smaller than the Icelandic. We have experience with Romney mixes, and not our favorites, but again, very heavy, soft wool producers. So that is where Romney become very popular. Finn, we really like Finn. We love the Finn milk. We love that they are good mothers and they have multiples very easily. So currently we have a Finn Ram, which are naturally polled. And then Shetland, again, very similar breed, a little bit smaller. And so we like that. So yeah, our girls are different varieties and have different purposes, but you got to know what you want from your when you're choosing your breeds. And again, so as far as being easy keepers, they are definitely getting on the larger side of livestock and take a little bit more investment, time, and fencing, more barn space, shelter, things of that nature. And we will in the future go into fencing and beginner housing for animals. So we're not talking about all of those things in this episode. We just wanted to do an overview of your choices of animals out there and what animal might be best for you. All of your animals are going to require the same food, water, shelter, and fencing.
So that moves us to a different category, a category of more difficult, as we've labeled it. We kind of consider these animals to maybe be a little on the more difficult scale overall.
Maybe the
And
more advanced
yeah.
homesteading if you were
Um,
just starting out.
yep. So we would categorize such animals as turkeys, donkeys, horses, mules, cows, and bees.
So right off, you might say turkeys, they're easy, and they are easy to keep. They are very easy. If you are just raising them for meat and you're doing it seasonally, getting chicks to raise and grow, they are a little bit harder than chickens because turkey chicks are not as smart as chickens. Turkey chicks tend to have a higher mortality rate. They are not quite maybe as brain smart as the chickens are, but they're easier to keep on this more difficult level. However, they are much harder to breed and to have a breeding population.
Yes, we have had very poor success rates with breeding. It's been multiple years now to the point where we're this fall. I'm going to butcher our last two turkeys for meat. and we'll be done with turkeys, raising them for ourselves. We were trying to breed a self-breeding population of turkeys, so we did go with a heritage breed that was able to self-populate. We weren't just raising them in big batches for meat, but we just had very little success. Very hard to get our girl to have a successful hatching, and if she did, we kept having high
She would,
fatality
yeah, she would
rates.
always successfully hatch out multiple chicks, but the chicks would succumb to various different things throughout very quickly, and we only had very few ever make it to some level of maturity. So for us, it wasn't isn't worth our time or effort to continue to raise heritage breed turkeys for an ongoing population. That being said, we also have a huge wild turkey population in our area, so that is always an option.
Right, hunting
Or we
has
can always raise small batches for a specific purpose to put some in the freezer. But
right, but for an ongoing population, that
at
didn't
this
work for
point, we're
us.
not going to be trying that right now. It's we
Yep.
have too much other things, too many other things to invest our effort into. So, again, turkeys, you've got to know your breeds. Heritage breeds versus broad breasted is a big deal. Another more difficult grouping would be your equines, your donkeys, your horses, mules, etc. Now, these are more difficult because the larger the animal, the more difficult it is going to be. There is going to be more space required, specialized feed required, more care and routine things need to be done. Farriers need to be taken care of if you don't do that yourself. And then the training and exercise requirements. So you have to be aware again, then breed comes into play. What are you looking for in, say, a horse? Are you looking for drafting purposes? Are you looking for just pleasure riding, pasture pets? Are you doing trail riding? There's so many different breeds out there. So know what you're looking to do and then find a breed that will work for you and for the space and requirements that you have. The same goes with donkeys. They range from miniature to mammoth sized donkeys. Getting one that works for your space requirements and what your purposes are is a key there. Again, these are a more difficult, but if that's all you want to raise, then go right ahead and start with these and set up for these from the beginning. And maybe if you are just starting out, these are a larger animal that's more of a someday thing, then keep in mind that there's always room to grow and expand in the future. So the next larger, more difficult area would be cows. And we wanted to start with cows when we were first homesteading. We were very excited after we had had some smaller animals and doing things. We were going to get us a cow.
Yep, that was quite the story for us.
I think our first cow experience taught us above everything that does matter.
Mhm.
And we were very clear and purposed with the breed that we chose. And we went to pick up that breed of cow. And this is where we learned breed does not only matter, the training of the animal or its care before coming to you matters just as much as breed. Because while we had researched this breed and it was a Dexter breed, and we were convinced and had heard from others that the Dexter was an amazing breed for homesteaders. When we got there, the cow was being abused, and it was became not a this is a good cow for our family. We should make this purchase because it's the right cow for our family. Instead, it became a if we don't purchase this cow, they are literally just going to beat her to death and starve her. Like, she needs to come with us so she can put weight on, be cared, and then move to either we rehab her or move her to a place who can. And so that's what we did. It was not a great experience.
Nope.
We ended up rehoming her within a month to another place. I was pregnant at the time. It was not a safe situation. She was not a safe cow, so we moved her on to someone who thought they could help her. So that also scared us from cows. And then moving on, we were at other homesteads with cows, and again, similar, not great experienced cows, and some, yeah, scary experiences with cows. And so that really made us wary and maybe not fearful of having cows, but just wary and not putting it on our agenda for sure. Now we've had some experiences with cows that have been rather good. Um, in the recent last year or so, we've seen some cows done well and have been gaining confidence in the idea of having a cow. We don't see it happening this fall,
We don't
but
really feel ready for it, but we're not completely opposed to the idea anymore. We see that it could work with the right breed and the right training before it comes to us not being abused and taken care of, maybe even trained, or getting one young enough and raising it. That might work.
so that is now on the table again. But even for us experienced homesteaders, you have to know what you can handle and when you can handle it. And for us, it had to go off the table for a number of years. Now, with our family size and requirements of food, it makes a lot of sense to add a cow to the homestead. And so we are really just taking time to pray, to research, and just see what comes. For those interested, we are really considering a miniature Jersey cow is what we'd like to find. Either an experienced milk cow would be preferable, but definitely keeping our eyes open for a miniature Jersey for now. All right, and then the last animal we're going to talk about right now for homesteading that is, yeah, that is on our more difficult list. Doesn't mean they are difficult, but these animals are more difficult, take more thought, take more research and planning and preparation for, um, is bees.
And for us with bees, we did it backwards. we were not planning to get any kind of bees, and it wasn't on our radar. And I got a call from the local mailing center saying that they had bees under our name for pickup, and wanted to know if they should deliver them or can we come and get them. And I was like, "Are you sure bees?" They said, "Yes, it's a hive of bees, and they need to get picked up today."
And so that like began our frantic rush
Uh-huh.
into we're getting bees. We had no clue. Like we had researched bees and talked about bees, but hadn't like we didn't have any of the supplies for bees. So we were getting bees that day and we couldn't figure out where they came from. We assumed that maybe one of our amazing supporters sent us some bees to surprise us. We really could come up with nothing else how these bees were in our name and on our way.
But as far as we could
So
tell, we had bees to deal with. So
so we hit the ground. I called just about everyone I knew who had bees or had experience with them. And lo and behold, one of the homesteads that had experience with bees said, "Yeah, actually, we're getting out of bees. We don't have bees anymore, and we'd be willing to give you our entire bee setup and in trade for a spring lamb." And I was like, "That's it. That's all. Yep, that's all we want. We really just want a nice spring lamb. Can we trade you?" And because we're just totally done with bees, they had tried for several years, didn't find it beneficial. So that's what we did. We drove over, we took care of all of that, got the bees set up. All right, now we're rushing. We need to get some foundations and read the books real quick, figure out what we need. The mail should be here soon. They said they're going to deliver the bees. And so the mail truck pulls in and we're expectantly waiting the bees. And the delivery driver says, why did they tell you it they told you it was bees? And I'm like, yes. I was like, do you have bees? And he's like, no, it's mealworm larvae. I was like, are you kidding me? Literally, it was my son's mealworm larva that he had purchased to raise mealworms in his mealworm farm. And they had been convinced at the mail post office that the small box of mealworms was bees.
Yeah. So we were all backwards there. We got all ready and no bees to be ready for.
So now we are pretty prepped and ready for bees. And so that may be an addition this coming spring. We have kind of already passed the time of year to get bees and get them established. And we've also it's been a prayerful consideration regarding, especially with one of our son, we found out this summer being anaphylactic to wasp stings. So that obviously puts some hesitation there, but we're considering seriously bees and cows in the near future. So stay tuned and you'll never know what you're going to find. Really, though, it all just comes down to the best beginner animal is the animal that you are able to best care for properly and reap benefits from. This means using lots of self-education, and in some cases, some animals will require more resources than others. But the best beginner animal is the one that you choose is best for you. So, I guess it's time to wrap this up.
So please like, share, subscribe, and join our email list.
And don't forget, go out,
dream big,
and discover your own Yurtiful life.